Hey guys, it's Rumblin' Man here, and in this video, we are reviewing the Thomastik-Infeld Jazz Flatwound bass strings. So make sure you stick with me. So hello and welcome back to the Rumblin' Man channel, my return viewers and subscribers, insiders and patrons. I thank you all for being here as always. And if this is your first time on the Rumblin' Man channel, I welcome you for the first time. You are welcome to hit the subscribe button. And if you already know you're going to love content like a review of these strings, do me a favor and go in and smash, if you will, the thumbs up button so that YouTube will be more likely to recommend my video in searches for this product, okay? For those who don't know me, I'm Rumblin' Man. I've been in music as my profession for 15 years. I produce, I play live, I focus on guitar and bass, and then here on the Rumblin' Man YouTube channel, we review gear and we educate guitarists and bassists. So welcome one and welcome all. I am very glad you are here. All right, today we're looking at some bass strings that I've wanted to look at for a while, and that would be the Thomastik-Infeld Jazz Flatwound bass strings. Thomastik-Infeld is a great company based in the heart of Vienna. They make music strings of the highest quality, and they have been doing so since 1919. That's a few years before my time, and to really anyone who's watching this, probably before your time too. I've wanted to review a set of these for quite some time, but the thing that's been holding me back until today is that, a set of these particular flatwound bass strings can cost up to $77 from some retailers. So really, one question we're going to kind of try to answer in today's review is this: is a set of these strings worth that kind of money? If you're going to spend 60, 70, 80 bucks on a set of bass strings, are these strings worth spending that kind of money? Well, I'm going to give you the demos and information necessary to draw your own conclusion, and I'm going to tell you my conclusion as well. So let's dive in. These strings utilize a highly pliable steel core that is wrapped with a silk inlay. The outer winding is a true ribbon flat wound that is constructed of a special nickel alloy, and from this process we get a certain depth of tone that's not really available from any other flat wound string on the market. That's interesting. So the components used and how these are made, they produce a product that you can't really clone. And me personally, I've tried a lot of different flat wound bass string sets. I haven't tried them all, but I've tried a lot. Like on a bass over here, I have a great set of Roto Sound Monel jazz bass flat wounds. On the Gibson bass that's on the wall behind me, I have an old set of DR Strings Legend flats. I've had many sets of D'Addario Chromes over the years. I have tried Fender flats. And I've never owned labellas, but I have played them in music stores and at NAMM on several basses. But while I haven't played every flatwound string in existence, I've definitely gotten around, and I can tell you they're not all the same. They're really not. Some of them have impressed me, and some of them haven't. So maybe in the future we'll make a video just about comparing flatwound strings in general. But I'll say this, they can be very different. For instance, the Roto Sound Monel flats that I have as compared to, say, a set of labellas or D'Addario Chromes, the texture is completely different. The sound is a bit different. And I do find that these Thomastik flats, they do sound different than any flats I've used. They have a deep sound to them, but there's still some really nice clarity. And I'm really enjoying playing on these. Now, back in the 1960s, flat-wound bass strings were still standard. I mean, it was 1962 or so, when the first round wound set came out, but it took a long time for rounds to really catch on. And then today, rounds are standard, but some of us who know a little something about what flats can do for you will still, throw some flats on 3 or 4 of our basses, won't we? But back in the day when they were standard, in some ways, bass playing was still evolving a little bit because it was just in, the 1950s, that the first electric bass guitar, came about. And a lot of people switched over from playing upright double bass, and a lot of other people switched over from playing guitar. Because of that, you didn't see as much fingerstyle playing as you do today. We saw a lot of playing with a pick. And because of this, when you string up a bass with flat wound strings these days, there's really something special to playing them with a pick. Though I'm mainly a fingerstyle guy myself, I do love pick playing. So what I want to do real quick is, before we talk some more, I want to give you a little demo of how these will sound played with a pick, okay? So I've got them strung up on a Fender 57 reissue P bass. And so what we're going to do at first is I'm going to have the tone rolled on full, 10, and I'm going to play down kind of in the bridge position where you get a slightly tinnier sound with a little more treble. And then after that, I'm going to play again, but this time I'm going to play up toward the neck, in the neck position where you get kind of a thuddier, woodier tone than you do in the bridge position. And then after that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the tone knob and I'm going to roll it to about 50%. And I'm going to play back in the bridge position again so that you can hear what it sounds like to play on these with a pick with the tone rolled off just a bit. Okay, so for my setup today, I'm running the bass direct with no amp simulation or anything, straight using a Fender cable into the Focusrite Scarlett interface, which is my favorite interface for recording right now. Really great one. And then what we're going to do from there is, in post-production, I will probably add some compression or reverb, but it'll be fairly minimal. So you're hearing a really pure tone, and then the actual files that I'm using in the video editing process are waves. So it's all going to be, as high quality as I can get it to you. Okay, so let's check it out. Let's listen to some pick playing on these awesome strings. So isn't that cool? Some really cool vintage tones you can get there. And you can also you can tell it really has an application for modern use. It's interesting, when I first heard of flat wound strings and first started trying flat wound bass strings, and even over the years into recent times, I don't always think of flat wounds when I think of, modern bass tone and playing on a record or in a band. But quite honestly, flat wounds are fine for all of the above, and they're pretty great. In fact, just like a P bass is known to sit really nicely in a mix, flat wound strings are known to sit really nicely in a mix as well. And I can say this is a very true thing because I've done a lot of recording with flat wounds over the years. I used to have a 5-string jazz bass that was strung up with flats, and I did, more than one, project with that bass. And I can say after recording with them, playing live, flats are a joy to play, and they do sit in a mix quite well. Just to test that real quick, I'm going to play fingerstyle in a brief kind of worship style mix, just to show you how nicely the P-bass can sit in an audio mix with other instruments. Fingerstyle played with a pick is great too, with these beautiful flat-wound strings. Let's check it out. Kaye was one of the hardest working session musicians of the 60s and 70s. Honestly, you hear her bass lines when you're listening to your favorite old records. You hear her bass lines when you're watching movies. And you even hear her bass lines when you're walking through the mall. Kaye began her career as a jazz guitarist, but ended up switching to bass guitar as her primary focus at somewhere along the way. Kaye's go-to setup in terms of the instrument she would play a Fender Precision bass, strung up with flat-wound strings. She would play with a pick about 90% of the time, and she would also have a mute. When she was playing with a pick, she would have a felt mute taped to the strings on top of them, and then when she was playing with fingers, she would have a foam mute taped to the strings under the strings. And those are what gave her the best response that she was looking for, and day after day, she created great and memorable bass lines. Well, Kaye to this day prefers Thomastik-Infeld flat-wound strings. In fact, it was like earlier this month, I don't know when it was, but I follow her posts on social media because she still posts quite a bit, and she actually said something. She made this post recently about her bass tones and how she got them, and she had this to say about the Thomastik strings. I use and endorse the great Thomastik Jazz Flat strings. See my catalog accessories for a hefty discounted price, always in stock. They last for years, and though expensive, are cheapest in the long run, and I consider them to be the Rolls-Royce of strings, heads above anything else out there. Most of your top pros do also love the Thomastik strings. So pretty cool how ardently Kaye recommends these bass strings, and quite honestly, if I'm going to listen to someone, if I'm going to go to anyone on the planet for advice about what flat-wound bass strings I should use, Kaye is probably the living person that I'm going to go to. So big thanks to Kaye out there. She doesn't know me, but thank you, Kaye, just for all the things that you post and all the things that you've done over the years, and for your great testimonies about gear and tone. Very, very awesome. So for Kaye, it's worth the extra dollar to get a set of these because of the great quality they are. Well, what about me? Here's what I'll say. Of all the flat-wound bass strings I have tried, these particular strings, they feel different than any other flat-wound I've tried. They feel similar to like the Rotosound Monels, but not with so many grooves. They have a smoother feel to them, like a smoothness that I would relate more to chromes or labellas. In terms of tone, they're not as bright as some flats I've used, but quite honestly, I feel like, the depth of the tone, the bassy tone they get still has a lot of nice clarity to it. And I think, obviously a lot of people recommend using a rosewood fretboard with flats, But I think, you know, with the P-Bass I'm using, having a maple fretboard kind of brings out those highs a little bit. And so I'm really having a great time playing these strings. To me, they're actually very inspiring strings to play. When I sit down and play with them, whether I'm plugged in or not, I've noticed like the past couple days having them, I immediately just start coming up with new bass lines. You know, I start playing new stuff I haven't played before. You know, maybe I'll dig in up here a little bit for vintage tones. And I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with these, and I would have to say I'm probably more impressed with these so far than I ever have been with a Flatwound string. Now, I don't know what my opinion will be long term. This is still a fairly new set, but obviously, you know, some months down the road when they're more worn in, I will make another video, you know, letting you hear how they sound nice and worn in. That said, do I think it's worth, you know, $77 or so, you know, to go with a set of Thomastiks? I actually do. And not a lot of us really have the money to spend. Like me personally, if I were gonna, you know, go buy another set, I would have to like plan it in advance, right? But the thing is, like Carol Kaye said, they last a long time. They keep their tone, they keep their texture. You know, they're very well made, of very high quality components. And if you want to get a set of Flatwound strings, you know, you got to think long term, because Flatwounds, they last a long time. They last longer than rounds. They are not likely to break. You know, and it does take a while for them to get a really dead tone. And quite honestly, so because you're going to have them a while, because you're going to get some longevity out of them, you want to go with something pretty good, you know. Maybe instead of, you know, going with the cheapest, you know, Ernie Ball set, or maybe instead of getting, you know, 2 sets of Roto Sounds, maybe spend a little more and get something that you're really going to enjoy playing on, something that's going to inspire you. Because I'm telling you, these strings inspire me when I play them. And I love playing on them. So can I say that they're the best? Well, I haven't tried everything to the extent where I can make that call yet. But can I say that they're worth the money? Absolutely. So what do you think of the Thomastik-Infeld flats? Let me know in the comments. Do you use Flatwound bass strings? If so, what are your favorites? I would love to chat strings and bass and tone with you, because it is one of my favorite subjects in the entire world. Okay, thank you so much for watching this review today. I really hope it was informative. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please give me the thumbs up button. Make sure you're subscribed here to the Rumblin' Man channel. We've got more content for bass players coming up. We've got content for guitar players coming up. A lot of cool things are planned, so please stick with me. Okay, guys, I appreciate you hanging around. Appreciate your support as always. God bless you, and I will see you in the next video. All right, peace out.